Hi, y'all. So, I know you don't usually expect me to be making videos on YouTube, but as I think there's a kind of heat of the universe thing happening over on Twitter and has been, slowly but now more rapidly over the past 2 years, I wanted to start moving things over and kind of transitioning to doing more, lol, transitioning to more video content and doing deck profiles and other breakdowns and stuff like that. I've had some issues with being able to do streaming and videos before because of some anxiety about, will people judge me for taking a bunch of pauses, how my voice sounds really tired at the end of a day of teaching, and how I look and things like that. But you know what? I'm just going to try to take it slow and see how it goes. So, what I wanted to bring you today is a deck which I think I'm kind of known for at this point because of playing it a lot, as well as the ongoing guide to Memento that I have over on my Twitter. The Google slide that's got like 45 different combos for Memento, but I've never actually done a deck profile in video form. So I figure no time like the present, right? So this is my current build of Memento for the Rage of the Abyss format. I've liked this build quite a bit. I've played a number of different builds over the past 6 months. I've played a more hand trap heavy builds. I was also playing a build that was like 49 cards for one weekend that played a bunch of wild stuff with like Terror Top and more Goblin cards, and all were interesting, but I think this is the best, most consistent way to play Memento in this format. Is it the best deck in the room? No. But is it something that has some ways of competing with some of the top decks? Yeah. I've won a few locals with it. I've got my invite with it a couple months back, and and it's done all right at regionals and YCSs. I bubbled YCS, which is this Niagara, but that was more due to player error. So, it happens, but I wanted to show off this deck either way. So, without further ado, and with the end of me yapping, let's go ahead and get into it. So first, we're going to start off with our main deck. So first off is going to be your 3 copies of Memento Anguish. Anguish is the best normal summon in the deck. She plays around most of the hand traps best. She plays around Fualo's best, as well as she's the best one for if your opponent tries to hit her with something like an Ash or an Imperm, things like that. Unless you're in a very simplified game state and you're playing against, when you're playing against this deck, don't hand trap this, especially don't Ash it. There are so many things that punish that move. So, she's great. On normal and special, she adds a Memento monster, and she can reborn a Memento monster from graveyard level 2 or lower by popping a Memento on field. Next, we have 3 copies of Darkblade. Now, Darkblade isn't as good into Fualos and isn't as good with the Goblin Quick Play spell that was introduced in Rhoda, but there are a couple other things that it has over Anguish. One, on normal or special, it also pops a card, it pops a spell trap by discarding a Memento card. And because you play a pretty high quantity of Memento cards in this list, this effect is actually live pretty often. It helps with like pressuring things like a Fiendsmith Desiree. You can attempt to pop the sequence and force out some type of negation, as well as just other random things that are in the format. This effect on your opponent's turn as a disruption actually comes up a bit too. It's also an 1800 body, which allows you to do things like pressuring an IP or an SP. Next, we have 3 copies of Tatsu. So Tatsu no Toshigo is an extender in the deck. It's also starter. A lot of people know now that if you hit something in this deck, you usually hit this. So a lot of people will Ash the horse. There are a lot of ways to play through that. If you open like Darkblade plus horse, start with horse because people will try to Ash it, and then you normal summon Darkblade and they will sigh. So this card can special if you control no base up monsters, or only mementos, and can destroy a memento on the field and send to the graveyard up to the level of the destroyed monster. It's usually itself, but in other cases it can be other things. So the next one is not that. It's going to be 2 copies of Goblin. Now we're moving off of the 3-ofs in the deck. Goblin is still a 1-card starter in the deck, as are these other 9. It's the worst 1-card starter, but I personally play 2 in the deck because 1, it is still combo, and 2, it ensures that there is a very, very, very low chance that your Goblin quick play spell is offline. So even if you draw this with the Goblin quick play, you're still playing through, a hand trap if they try to hand trap this. I like 2 Goblin. It still gets you to a smaller yet still very powerful version of the Griffin combo, which is what I play in this more pure Memento list. There is only 1 Fiendsmith card in this list, and it's not in the main deck. Next is just going to be your 1 of engine requirement cards. So, 1 Gaddock, this card is great. You just don't want to see him. He's probably the worst monster to draw, but there are still ways to play around this easily. Like let's say you have Gaddock plus Darkblade. You can go Darkblade, summon Anguish. Anguish add your, whatchamacallit? Your sheep, and then your sheep can summon and then fuse using this in hand as well as the 2 on field to make Creation King. And then you can make a chain block Creation King because the Gaddock will be chain link 2 to summon from a grave, which is really nice for things like Ash on your Creation King. 1 Sleepy, we love this card ever since it's been released. A normal or special, it can fusion summon into a Memento fusion using hand or field monsters. It can special if a memento or a monster in your possession has been destroyed this turn, and if it's destroyed itself by battle or card effect, it can foolish. There are weird ass times where you only, like there have been times where I literally only have this and no other engine cards, and I've just normal summoned this, gone to attack, attacked into something. Sleepy effect, send Gaddock. Gaddock effect, add back the Sleepy, and then you fuse into the Twin Dragon in battle phase. It's really just goofy as hell, but it's come up a couple of times. Mace, she's the engine requirement. She gets you into a lot of your quick plays and such. She usually adds Bone Party. She usually adds Fusion, but if you are a Fusion, you add Bone Party, but can also grab any Memento card. So there's a lot of versatility. And then we get Horn Dragon. Some people have cut this card. I love this card both as an extender and as a piece of disruption. It just gives you so many more plays into things like Droll and Fualos. I love having Horn Dragon to be able to pop face-up cards that the opponent controls. Having an Icarus attack for this deck is so cool, and I love that it's on this monster. He is sometimes a brick though, because you need 3 different names engraved to summon him. Akihiran is your newest addition to the deck. Akihiran can special from graveyard if a Memento monster is destroyed by card effect or battle, either card effect in hand or battle on field. Let me say that again. Akihiran can be special summoned from the graveyard if a Memento card is you control is destroyed by battle or card effect on field or card effect in the hand. When he's destroyed by card effect himself, he can add back a banished or graveyard Memento card. So this basically gives you like an infinite grind game. Additionally, when he's summoned, he can allow your level 9 and higher Memento monsters to attack. This effect does come up, actually. It's really funny when it does, but it has won me a few games at this point. Last but not least, the big guy, the man, the myth, the legend, the combined creation. It's really funny now because in a number of your combos, you actually summon this guy twice. Because his summon from graveyard is not once per turn. He has to shuffle back 5 different names though, so don't get caught off guard and shuffle back 2 names and then get a game loss or something. He can also special from hand or graveyard. if your opponent activates a card or effect. Great card. Wish he had protection, but I think he would just be a bit broken. The only other monster I play in the deck is 3 Droll. Now I play 3 Droll in the deck because in this format, the best deck is going to be any of the Snake Eye variants, right? Usually something with Azamina as well. And a lot of those things can't be taken down by your non-engine because you simply don't really play enough. So when you see your engine, you want it to be as high impact as possible, and Droll consistently limits your opponent's board, where cards like Ash and Imperm, things like that, will sometimes just lead your opponent to still using a card in their hand to go full combo. So Droll almost always gets value, which is what I like about it. As well, you have your quick plays, 3 Memento Fusion, 3 Bone Party. Bone Party is crazy. It's Rescue Ace Emergency, and sometimes better and sometimes worse. The effect in Graveyard to banish and give your monster piercing also comes up. Very funny. Did I mention that Combined Creation can attack all monsters your opponent controls if it's the only monster you control? Once again, a weird effect that does come up. Fusion, some people play 2 of this, but I think you actually want to play 3 because you just need these pushes. You are going to brick sometimes, but playing into boards, this card is so crucial. A quick play in general is so crucial to be able to play into a board. Being able to shuffle from graveyard, broken. Being able to add itself from graveyard too, or like being able to add another copy of itself when you banish it, hilarious. People don't realize it can do that. The other thing is the engine requirement, 1 Memento Midlan. This can be searched off of your Creation King. This card can reborn from hand or graveyard. Something funny about this is that it targets what you destroyed in your possession. So if you destroy a monster that you stole from your opponent, this will still trigger. It still target that monster to summon 1 of your mementos from hand or graveyard with a lower level. Being able to set in the end phase too, so good. Such a weird field spell, but it's great. The newest addition to the spell lineup is 3 Goblin Biker Grand Breakout. Now Grand Breakout is a card that allows you to play through a lot of the low impact and some of the high impact hand traps in the format. So this allows you to tribute a monster and special a goblin from your deck. Because Memento Thing Goblin is a goblin, there you go. It's a card that I often side out going second, unless I'm playing into a match that has a lot of targeted negation, targeted pops, things of that nature. So, I love this card though. It's great and makes your deck really good at going first. Also very consistent, because literally I won a match because I normal summoned a Droll, I tributed it with this, and I was putting my opponent on you don't have Ash because I have a Bone Party and a Fusion in my hand. So as long as this resolves, I'm not losing. Next for the non-engine, we have 3 Super Polymerization. So I really like Super Poly in this format. It's once again, you want to limit the boards. So Super Poly hits just about everything that sees tiered play in this format. And I'll show you some really cool targets in the extra deck as well. But I thought that this was a really solid card. I was playing Droplet in this slot, but why I like Super Poly was that it still hit when I got shifted. So, great card. Next we've got the 1-of power spells. So we've got 1 talent, 1 prosperity, 1 thrust, 1 rhoda, 1/1 for 1, called by the grave, and imprint. So these things I feel like are pretty self-explanatory. Called by, you just need to hit the shifters. Prosp is broken, bring it back please, 2 and 3. Rhoda, extra consistency, and 1/1 for added consistency. One of the other things with playing the 3 Droll is that it keeps your monster count at 20. I like those ratios for both the Goblin Quick Play spell, at least monsters that are non-engine that can be normal summoned, and they also work for 1-for-1. So I just liked it for those. Once you start replacing those slots with spells and traps, you start getting to this point where cards like 1-for-1 and your Goblin Biker start to brick more. So now this probably looks really sus. Like, why 1 talents, 1 imperm, 1 thrust? So the thing with thrust is that this deck has so many different targets for it. You have your 1-for-1 in your Rhoda. Your 1-for-1 is really important when you have a brick that you just need to get out of your hand and you just need one more push into your opponent's board. But it can also add the, it can also add or set the imperm, and it can also add you the 1 talents. So you're never gonna have 2 talents. You're never gonna have that problem. But it can also grab you your prosperity. A lot of times with pros, you really want to be seeing something like Super Poly, a Fusion, a Bone Party, and this just like being able to see a prosp ensures that you get there easier. So I know it looks weird, but I still want to play 3 thrusts in the deck, and I have 2 on the side, so I felt that these ratios made some weird amount of sense. If you want to tell me I'm whack for that, I honestly wouldn't blame you that much. So let's move on to the extra deck here. So first let's start with the links. So 1 Artemis. Artemis is made in your Griffin combo, but it also helps in simplified game states to give you an SP that can banish. I think you need to play at least 1 Link 1 in this deck, and I think Artemis is often the best one. 1 SP, yeah, the meme, SP pass, yada yada. Then your Memento monster, so 1 Twin Dragon, and your 2 Creation Kings. So, let me move these to the side a little bit. So, with these ratios are pretty much set in stone by now. You really only need to play 1 Twin Dragon, and your 2 Creation Kings you always need to play 2. You can shuffle these back into the extra deck now with the Akihiran, but there are lines where you need to send this off of this. Enough said, they're broken, I love them so much. Next we have the Super Poly targets, so we have your 2 standard ones. So Garura and Mud Dragon, these are just so generic and they come up all the time when you're playing against decks that can be Super Poly. Mud Dragon is also nice in this format because it can crash with Ilia Sylvia. So you can do stuff like being able to fuse off, like let's say a Desiree plus a Silhouette Rabbit and then just like attack into an Ilia Sylvia. But you actually don't really need that. This actually, against the Fire King as a Mina stuff, this also helps because you can hit the Whale as well as the Arvada, and then just like crash into Ilia Sylvia. The other ones I play are 1 Chaos Star Source Dragon. This doesn't come up a lot, but this is basically the Centurion killer. So it's from Rage of the Abyss, and if you don't know it, it takes a light or dark dragon monster plus a dragon monster. It says if this card is fusion summoned, you can target cards your opponent controls up to the number of light and dark monsters used as this card's material, destroy them. So this kind of just breaks the whole Centurion board. It's kind of crazy. It has another effect, but it's really not important. It just polys and then destroys stuff. Azumina Soul Erosithten is another one that is kind of strange. This is another one from Rage of the Abyss. It takes an illusion plus a fiend monster and says if this card is fusion summoned, you can target a card on the field, send it to the graveyard. Now, if you're playing against a deck that has, let's say, a Desiree plus an Ilia Sylvia, or there are other game states where you get into this, this is really good at being able to pressure a board. It's also like Silhouette Rabbit plus Desiree also does it. But either way, this card is also something you can make off of your Memento Fusion, because your Creation King is an illusion as well as you play Fiends. So you can actually make this while you're under draw, as opposed to Guardian Chimera, which I no longer play in the deck. And it's also something that doesn't use any of your resources from hand or field. Pretty neat. Last thing is sometimes a super poly target, but mostly just a card for your Griffin combo, which is Baphomet. So Baphomet is made off of Sequence, and Sequence is made off of Nightmare Griffin. I'll be able to show you all the combos and stuff like that if you haven't seen them already. But Baphomet can actually summon your Creation King from the banishment as long as you properly summoned it. And then the last thing is, this is also part of the Griffin combo, your Gaddock as well as your Goblin or Fiend, so you can make Yama. And the last two are Selena Access Code. This is also part of the Griffin combo. And then Access Code is really good for being able to pressure boards quickly. There are times where I put down like Access Code plus Horn Dragon, and just pressure with 8100 damage before I can even bring out Command Creation from Grave. It's kind of like a little bit of a nib check. And then finally the side deck. So we have one Fracture Dance. I like Fracture more than Cranium Burst because it's hard to talk at length. So Fracture Dance is more consistent than Cranium Burst. Basically, if you have anything you can normal summon, this is just going to be online. And it's a decent disruption. So for those who haven't read this, if you control Memento, target a card on the field, destroy it. If you control Combined Creation, you can also pop another card on the field, non-targeting after that. So yeah, it also has an effect in the graveyard to banish and make your opponent's monsters lose 1,000 attack. Now that effect doesn't really come up nearly as often. Then we got the 2 Tactics and the Thrust. So I wanted another good card for going first that can also go second quite well into a number of decks. And then the 2 Thrusts to add to the third one in the main. And then we have your Thrust targets. So 3 D-Barrier, 2 Threatening Roar, and 1 Black Goat Laughs. So D-Barrier, you bring this in against Ritual Beast, you bring this in against Tempai. In a pinch, you can bring it up in as the Mino stuff so they can not really access their fusions, but I wouldn't usually recommend that. Threatening Roar has honestly been kind of crazy. Card is actually really good for a lot of like the shifter decks. For both Tempai, I mean this card is broken against Tempai, but it's also good into stuff like Kashtira because there are some Kashtira that's still out there. But yeah, a lot of times your opponent will set up trying to kill you because they think you've just bluffed or something, and then they go to battle phase, and then at the start of battle, you just flip Threatening Roar, and then their like board stays kind of messed up, and then you have a bunch of crackback stuff. So yeah. Last thing, Black Goat Labs. I wanted a card that was good against Tempai, called Chandra, called the level 7, but a card that was also good into other decks generically, you know, call Flamberge when Oak tries to summon from deck, etc. And last thing that I needed for the requirements was something that wouldn't lose all its value if I got hit with Duster or Lightning Storm, because the best cards against this deck, if you're trying to do board breakers, are often going to be your Dusters and your Lightning Storms. So it just fulfilled all those requirements. The last thing is 3 Dogwood and a Red Resonator. I just like these cards. She looks like a nun. And Red Resonator, do you know you can normal summon this sometimes if you draw it? And you can summon from hand like an Anguish or a Darkblade. It's really funny. If you summon Anguish, you can't grab Tatsu though, so it's kind of booty. Anyway, here's the Fualos. I pulled it from a pack and I'm playing it. So that is the deck. And I'll be able to show off like some combos and stuff like that in other videos, I think, if I keep rolling with this. So thank you for listening. I know that I probably sound a little hoarse and stuff. Teaching is hard, but I wanted to, you know, have more conversation, put out more stuff into the world. As my lovely boyfriend Leo says, we're making bad content. So thank you for watching. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Peace. Peace.